T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Welcome, ladies and gents, to another episode of Midheaven Podcast. I don't know where this southern accent is coming from, but it could be Jupiter himself. You never know. This is, of course, Hermes and Hades, in another dimension, Hades and Hermes. But
your favorite duo.
Oh yes,
we're back.
Yet again. I hope you enjoyed us last week.
Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed our Halloween episode.
It was very spooky.
Definitely terrifying.
Yeah. Sign of things to come. You know what? Kanye West kind of... I'm mad that every week what she predicted about Ye just looks like it's coming more and more true. Y'all saw me on this channel fight her vehemently, like, no, it's not going to happen to Ye. And you're like, yeah, it is going to happen to Ye. So
I was telling my husband, I was like, can we do like a rewind episode where we take all the predictions that we've made throughout the year and then like clip it together with stuff that's actually happened?
That'd be awesome.
Not as like an I told you so, but I realized that this is such a great example of like where astrology can be like literal or figurative. Mm-hmm. Where I said the Mars retrograde in Gemini for Kanye, you know, it's going to go retrograde in his 12th house. I was like, he's going to be put in an institution. They're going to try to get rid of him. Like they're going to lock him up. And the square to his Pisces moon, I was like, it's going to be about him having a breakdown or like trying to start a cult. Little did I know it was the world isolating and icing out Kanye and making him feel like he's isolated as a result of some of the comments that he's been making in regards to the Mars square Neptune religious, the religious war basically that Kanye is just having.
And as a Gemini, he's saying things that other people are thinking. So that's really the interesting thing, because there's a silent majority of people who agree with him, or have also been in trouble for saying stuff like that. So, but what really kind of pissed me off was I went out my way to make predictions. I'm like weekly predictions, and the last time I did it was 6 and 5. So I was like, okay, let me go 0 and 4. Like, let me just say things that obviously won't happen. I was like, Beyonce is going to declare war, Nicki Minaj is going to declare war, Ye is going to declare war, and Russia and Ukraine will come to peace. And Ye, next thing I see, Ye is like, I'm declaring war, and I just have $121 million in my account. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, this wasn't even supposed to happen. Like, you just fucked up I wanted to go 0 and 4. He fucked it up for me. It is what it is.
The Mars square Neptune is playing out like so fucking textbook. It's not even, I mean, it's sad.
You hear about Adidas stock?
Well, Adidas, I mean, Kanye was coming out basically saying to people, like, you know, I can't, like, I can say whatever I want, and, like, Adidas isn't going to cut me. And Adidas did cut Kanye, finally. And I heard that, like, Reebok and, like, other...
And Balenciaga. And,
yeah, like, all kinds of people... No, it's not Reebok. What is it? It's... Maybe it was Adidas stores. I don't know. Somebody came out and they were like, remove all the Yeezys from display.
Yeah. Which is really iconic, because this is the Uranus square that's happening to individuals. Aries to Cancer, Aries the Cancer moons, where it's like that Saturn rejection is pushing wealthy people like that to innovate, because someone like that doesn't really need to rely on these mainstream outlets, and now is forced to just use his own resources. And this is where, you know, we're gonna see who really supports not just him, but people in that position too, like Elon Musk, Trump, like people who are forced to, like, one has Parler, one has Truth, the other one might buy Twitter, like, and individuals like us who have to innovate, whether through homesteading or whatnot. So I'm really excited to see.
And people with tons of prominent Gemini placements.
Yeah.
So
that's so true.
Both Kanye and Trump, Gemini's sons. I think Elon Musk has Venus in Gemini.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see this Mars retrograde bringing up some karmic stuff, and then like seeing like some of the most censored people out there possibly like taking to new you know, new
We're gonna see them
ownership.
all come back. That's the craziest thing. Everyone that you've ever seen canceled is gonna come
How the
back.
fuck is Alex Jones gonna come back?
He's not ever gonna leave. He's gonna come. I mean, even though they're trying to sue the shit out of him, they're gonna come back on these fringe platforms like Truth. Like you're gonna see Parler and Truth at rival Twitter.
Also,
and
Rumble
Instagram.
though. Rumble's really
Rumble
big
too.
because
Rumble's been huge too.
I mean,
Yeah.
I can only take so much of Russell Brand, but like I really like what he's doing since he's made the segue
Gemini.
from YouTube
Yeah.
to Rumble.
I didn't know that. So he left YouTube.
He's on YouTube still, but he had one strike, and I guess it was like a warning, and he's creating shorter video content and stuff that's more edited down.
Okay.
But every day at 9 a.m. Pacific time, he's on Rumble live, and he's got like a whole hour show with like segments.
huge.
And
That's huge.
he'll integrate like meditation,
Yeah.
but he'll bring doctors on, and they talk about politics,
fucking
and like
huge.
he's funny, obviously, you
Yeah.
know. A lot of it is just like him doing like impersonations,
Right,
like kind
right.
of like it's
Gemini,
like
I love it.
get on with
Or
it.
Gemini.
But I think it's really cool. I don't know, maybe it's just me. Like the last like 2 years having had the North Node go through Gemini, I've had a lot more interactions with Geminis. Your Gemini sun, my partner's got placements in Gemini. Just
Martin,
it's
right.
been interesting to kind of like see that like ulterior perspective.
Yeah.
That's like, oh, it's maybe not this, it's that. And like, I love the way the Gemini transits, whether it was like the retrogrades, the eclipses last year, but now the Mars retrograde in Gemini, it's making, it's forming yods, a yod, a yod
A yod.
to Pluto and Capricorn. So it's like that turning point of like, oh, well, maybe this is what needs to like transform in regards to like our power or media or whatever. So I'm liking like the second option that's coming from all these Gemini aspects.
Especially looking at the retrograde, we got to look at Gemini. So I could see that, especially the square with Jupiter. Like I could see during the retrograde a reversal. Like we're seeing, and I'm using Kanye as an example because yeah, I'm talking about Kanye, but this can happen to you, right? So like we're seeing Kanye get like canceled or whatever, and then in the retrograde, that's gonna reverse somehow. I don't know if it's good. He's not gonna get uncanceled, but like, and I hate saying that canceled because this isn't the first time. This is the first time endorsements is dropped, but like it'd be interesting to see how with that King comes to Pluto things definitely change with
It's his
Jupiter
public
swing.
image. He's a Cancer
Yeah.
rising.
It's changing forever.
You
Right,
know?
that too.
And I feel
that's-
like this is also,
so
this
12
is some
times.
wild shit because I'm sure Kim is somewhere just being like, I have nothing to do with this.
everyone-
Or
he's
she's like, I told you he's fucking crazy. But I think it's more Pete Davidson because he's a Scorpio and he's got Saturn in Aquarius and
Yeah.
he's got Sun Pluto. So knowing that these squares are
That's gonna be
happening,
squared to
it's,
Pluto.
yeah, it's the fact that like some of the shit that people have done to him is now coming back to him.
Yeah.
Taylor Swift released her new album, and people have speculated that there's some stuff talking about how she's still airing out drama in relation to like Kanye. Kanye's
shit.
pissed some people off.
Hey.
It was what's her name? Who's the video hoe? What's her name?
Amber Rose?
Amber Rose.
Why
Taylor
did I know who you're
Swift.
talking about? Because
She's a video hoe. That's how that's what she is.
Slut walk.
Yeah, but I mean, no, I'm not disrespecting her, but I mean, I said that and you knew who
She's
she was.
she's a proud hoe. I mean,
Yeah.
self-proclaimed, yeah. Or slut.
But I feel like, you know, I'm not saying this is like Kanye's like karma because there's definitely like a full-blown fucking agenda to just annihilate Kanye right now. Like
And
full-blown.
everything he represents, because once again, like we've seen this happen to more than just Kanye. That's what you have to remember. Like Kanye is just one of many people who have spoken up about whatever they weren't supposed to speak up about and buried in semantic arguments, which is interesting because it keeps burying the issue back down. And what we're seeing with this Jupiter retrograde with Kanye and people like Kanye is even Trump. Like Trump said Kanye is crazy, but Trump is in the same boat as Kanye, the FBI rating him, you know what I'm saying? So just that whole like
But
consciousness.
Trump was
there.
also playing on the feelings of a bunch of like, I'm going to say this, a bunch of like religious hillbillies in the South.
Right.
Being like, I'm a Republican, like, fuck abortion, and I'm very pro-life, and I'm conservative, when like he had God knows how many mistresses, and I'm sure we know he's been divorced several times. He's done some very unsavory, ungodly like things, but he played on that. So now it's kind of interesting to see the perspective of like Kanye being like, my religion, my people, my belief system, my culture, and like him being at war, Mars and Gemini, with basically the masses, Neptune and Pisces, or other religious perspectives,
Or
the media.
This is Saturn. This is Saturn getting ready to square Sag and Gemini. So like, I wouldn't be surprised if an attempt at Kanye's life or Trump's life is made over the next 2 years. Like, we're gonna see something completely change and almost end, because it's very fitting. Kanye has finished his Saturn return. So despite what things look like on the surface, Saturn completing his Saturn is closing out his career and legacy. It's not necessarily that he's losing everything he's created. This is the opposition. It's the balance. So as it's coming into the 8th house, it makes sense that it's cutting all this off. So once again, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But I think with this Jupiter, we're going to start to see this push of all these, like, before 10 years ago, someone going to Rumble wouldn't matter. But so many people have left YouTube. So many people left Instagram. What would happen if now we start to see the balance shift between these, right? We might start to see that. But
this is the Saturn squares too. I mean, we've seen across the board where people are going to make more of a statement with their pocketbook. If you're like, I'm not buying that product, I'm not getting off that platform, I'm not supporting this like business, whatever. That's where we're really going to see some of the most happen.
I have a question regarding that for you.
What?
I'm not familiar with this, but what I've been seeing certain women do is boycott Ulta Beauty, and they're not going to be spending money on their products anymore. Did you hear about that?
First of all, I'm a Sephora girl. Let's just get that straight. I have quality of life purchases. Okay, I don't want to buy stuff at Ulta if I can buy that at Walgreens. I can't get my Chanel lipsticks and all my higher end beauty stuff. I can't get that at that store. First of all.
So Sephora.
So why is Ulta getting boycotted?
Okay, so
is it like anti-abortion stuff?
This one TikTok. How do I even say it without saying the wrong thing?
Just fucking say it.
This one,
just say it.
This one woman on TikTok. Oh, sorry, not because he identifies as a girl. So like this one girl on TikTok, was interviewed by Ulta, and basically Ulta was pushing. It was an interview between this gay woman, and then a girl that they're men that identify as women, and they were having talks about pregnancy and womanhood, and a lot of the women were just offended. Like, what the fuck do they know about being a woman? This is kind of offensive that they're doing woman face. And so that's the outrage right now. Like, you have a lot of women who are like,
to conservative women boycotting Ulta basically because they did an interview with a trans woman who identifies as a woman, born as a man.
Technically a girl. She says that being a woman is too intimidating. So he wants to be a girl right now.
If you're a girl, you're not technically entering into womanhood, therefore you're not giving birth to a child. So you can't be a girl and be. We're gonna say some offensive stuff. Sorry, guys. We're just gonna keep it real. I'm just being very.
He got interviewed
practical.
by Biden recently in the
I think
White House.
I saw who that was. And he also did like an interview talking about carrying around tampons and things.
Yeah, and passing out tampons.
Okay, so here's the thing.
I like what he represents because he's so open with it, and he's pushing a lot of the boundaries, and he's challenging a lot of people's minds.
Okay, so I saw an article recently. I don't know where I saw this, but it was like somewhere in one of the high schools. It could have been a college, I'm not sure. Where I think it was on a volleyball team. They had a trans girl, who was playing on a girls' volleyball team that spiked a ball, and it hit a girl in the head and caused brain damage or had some significant injury. Okay? All right. So obviously then they go, okay, we're not allowing there to be any trans people or whatever on the sports because this, that, and the other. Yeah, it was recent, okay? Oh, shit. So I don't really care. I kind of have like this libertarian standpoint that's like, let people do whatever the fuck they want to do in their private life. Like, if you want to wear dresses and talk about tampons, have at it.
Right.
As a woman, I have a vagina. I was born with one. Surprise. Like, I am insulted when a trans man wants to make comments and wants to say things about being a woman and giving birth and all of these things. It's no different than me being like, oh, I identify as a black woman.
I was gonna say,
you would be insulted if I was
blackface. Yeah.
Right. Okay. All right. Okay. So if men want to,
that would be offensive to me.
Okay. So it's the same shit.
Yeah.
So but
apparently you're kind of bigoted for saying that. For being offended that...
No, if anybody
Those
were to
girls.
say to me, are you offended because somebody wants to make comments about the pain and the struggle of being a woman and childbirth, but you can't do that technically if you have a penis.
Y'all don't
And
even
you're
get
also-
awards for being a woman.
You're not
Like, that comes to
you don't
us.
have a period. And I don't care how many trans people want to complain about that until you've actually had to deal with menstrual pain and like what it's like to be completely...
They're talking about creating... now, girls can have bulges in their pants. I don't know. It's very.
Oh no, I saw that.
Right.
We were talking about look at the bulge.
Yeah.
Look at my bulge.
It's. I
mean, if you have a fat enough pussy, you can have a bulge.
Oh, that's
If you have a
true.
fupa, you can have a bulge. It's a thing.
That's true.
That's a thing.
Well, I mean, it wasn't
It's like
the bulge they were
the
talking
Oogie
about.
Boogie pussy.
They were talking about the bulge.
Did you see that meme that was going around?
No.
I just sent it to you.
I have to see that.
If you guys didn't know already, obviously we're not just talking about Mars square Neptune. We're talking about Jupiter retrograde in Pisces.
Yeah. And this isn't a commentary on transgenderism as much as like just the current relevancy of what's happening and real remarks to this, because of course there's a majority of people who feel like you, but with that Saturn square it looks like y'all are the minority.
Well, I have to be careful because Saturn's in a square to my Sun and my Mercury, and that's like no joke. So like the last year I've been very careful about what I say and what I talk about, but I will say this. Part of the reason why we started this podcast is because we like the idea of being able to show two different perspectives, two different views, even though they're completely different, but being able to come together and have a conversation and just being able to speak the truth. Yeah. So some things that we say are offensive. I read some of the comments from the last couple of podcasts. People get upset because we're talking about Kanye. People get upset because we're talking about women. Like, we're just being honest and we're being direct with you guys about our interpretation of what's going on in the cosmos and also our view of... Because we're men and women and because this does kind of play into things, like... You have identified as somebody who's a follower of Christ or religion, so obviously you're going to be kind of interested in the whole Kanye thing, not because you like Kanye, but because he's talking a lot about coming from a place of religion.
Well, as far as I feel about that, like I'm convinced now certain elements of that aren't in a traditional way. Like when I look at Kanye talking about God, I'm not looking at a saint. Like I don't see someone who is
his Sunday service is anything but
normal.
Right.
Right,
okay.
That too. And
you're rapping about hoes and you're praying to God. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that.
And Ye knows exactly what he's doing. Ye wants to innovate and redefine what it means to be Christian, all that. I don't buy the whole I think he really does believe in God, but I think it's misleading to kind of... And I know he's doing it on purpose. Like he doesn't want you to equate Christianity with this dogmatic traditional thing. But
that's Catholicism.
But when he's saying like God, I know that's more to appeal to a certain...
He's going through some really gnarly Neptune squares though.
Yeah,
I think Neptune's aspecting his moon soon, it's square his sun, and then you've got all the Mars
with
stuff.
Jupiter too. And in light of what you said with the comments, like this is a huge culture war that's been happening. I feel like this Jupiter square and retrograde back is going to be like the piercing of the bubble. Like this culture war has been like...
But this is being driven by the media.
It is.
Mars is in its shadow, and Mars is getting ready to go retrograde. So actually, when you guys watch this, it's coming out at the beginning of October. November. Hello. It's going to come out at the beginning of November, and Mars will be retrograde. So I feel, whether it's the war in Ukraine, Kanye's fucking shenanigans against the Jewish community or anybody else, conflict in regards to... people who are, seeking asylum and they don't feel safe or secure where they are. Like, the media is going to find so many ways to, totally inflate this. Because
and distract you.
This is meant to be, the next wave of news to kind of, keep you distracted from what's going on. Okay, so we have seen Jupiter in and out of the sign of Pisces on and off since 2021. It first moved into Pisces around May of 2021. Moved forward into Aries in this last year, and it's been going retrograde. Now it's dipping back into Pisces. So it's going to be going back into Pisces around October 28th. It's only going to go retrograde to 28 degrees. It'll be there until about the end of December, and then it is going to go back into Aries. But the last time, right, in our lifetime that we're going to have Jupiter and Neptune in Pisces, which both rule Pisces, what's your hot takes on this while it's happening during Scorpio season? So we're going to see lots of trines from planets in Scorpio to both Jupiter and Neptune.
I think we're going to see one of the most major cultural shifts we've ever seen in a way that will finally push forward the narrative that kicked in all this weird and crazy shit since 2012. I think we're going to see a pushover into a more individual revolution where people take back control of the narrative. And it's going to be very ugly because we're going to be seeing the forces that be, which doesn't have to be this monolithic elite squad of like rich people, just whatever current influences that impact the narrative. We're going to be seeing them lose power fast. We're going to see them lose influence fast. And this is going to create an ugly counterattack from said forces that will reveal more of their intent and kind of facilitate this slip into the power coming into, I mean, with Jupiter and Neptune here, it'll still be foggy. So once it all goes into Aries, we'll see more of it, but it doesn't have to be a bad thing too. I think this is going to really change the way, I think a lot of the retrogrades with Mars and Jupiter is like preparing people to be exposed and revealed what we don't know now. And it's gonna, I think a lot of people are going to be thinking different about this Kanye conversation and everything that's happening outside of it than they do now. And the narrative might be completely reversed. Not even one that favors Kanye. I don't think this ends with Kanye West being seen as any less crazy. But I think that a lot more people will just admit, as it's already happening, Kanye was right. First of all, with everything they said, he didn't say anything anti-Semitic, he didn't say anything wrong. And it's not so much about Kanye, it's about every single person, black, white, male, female, like Kanye, who have said things similar and have meant something similar. It's going to kind of, well, it's not really about Ye as much as like what he represents. And that, I feel like, is going to be really exciting. But also, when you see people who got along, groups of people who got along by enforcing this peer pressure, lose that leverage, a very scary part of them might come out. And I don't think it'll be scary for us, but it'll be messy. It's very messy energy.
I see the Mars square Saturn as like vigilante shit. And so it's cool to see, like, as of this week, you know, fucking Elon Musk walking into Twitter carrying this big sink, being like, oh, I'm coming into Twitter, let that sink in. Like, sending a message basically being like, prepare, you know?
So Elon Musk has Twitter, Truth Social with Trump, and then next year's gonna be fucking crazy.
But it's cool that you see these people who have been kind of like vilified in the media coming out and being like, fuck you, I'm buying this shit. And then totally reworking and like trying to kind of shine a light on where they're sick and tired of being, you know, shown in that spotlight, and also that everything else is being distorted. And this is me just going based off of what I've seen. This is not me saying I necessarily agree, because I have to specify for all of you people out there, you keyboard warriors, your social, what do they call
You
them?
didn't demonize this person.
So I'm not saying that, but Kanye made some interesting points where he was like, look at everybody who owns the major news conglomerates, right? All the major media and news, for the most part, having some kind of connection to the Jewish background, who have always had issues with the Middle East and anything in regards to that conflict that's been going on for thousands of years between them and, you know, Palestinians or people who are followers of Islam. And the fact that he made comments being like, why is it okay for these record executives and these big companies who own the production studios and the music studios and all of these things that are okay with black people talking about killing other black people, or they're okay producing movies or films showing black on black crime or anything like that, or fueling more media that is going to be stirring everything up, that's creating more conflict in the East, right? In the Middle East. There's something to be said about that. And then the fact that he comes out and he kind of calls a spade, and then he gets totally, annihilated across the board. Everybody's dropping Kanye. All of a sudden, Kanye's the bad guy. Now, I'm not saying I agree with him, but he's basically coming out and saying, like, these are institutions that are basically circling and being able to promote fear and propaganda and war. And it's not just against people who I believe in, his faith, but also like his own background and his lineage and his, you know,
and he called a spade
group.
It's not.
It's and obviously you do that, and then he gets cut from everything, and it shows you that like they really do run everything.
They do. They've done
that. They've been like, that's a rap on Kanye.
Yes. He got treated like radioactive, and like that's the thing. This isn't about Kanye. This is,
and it's not even about Jewish people either. I have to say that it's not about Jewish people. It's about
he didn't do
people who are somehow high involved in the media. There's a lot of money to be made off of fear and also creating conflict between racial divide, religious divide, economic divide,
even
political
against sex
divide,
and gender, all that. It's and I love what you said about that, because like the argument is very quickly taken to a semantic argument that people who call that out are automatically thinking about Jewish people. No one who believes in this believes that's a lie. No one who No one who believes that.
They may very well be execs that work for people who own and run these companies, and they may not be Jewish, but they work right. But there is an agenda.
It's a fact.
There's an agenda.
It's a fact.
There's an agenda.
It's weird that people who call it out, and so that's what I'm saying. It's not really about Kanye West. It's about trying to act like you're not really doing anything to Ye when you do this. You're fooling American people. You're fooling people all over the world to try and act like you're justifying what you're doing. And people are watching that.
So look what's happened though over the last year, right? So we see all this peer pressure and all this shit that's like, if you're not getting a V word,
exactly,
you're going to be cast out of society because you're the reason why everybody's getting sick. And like, how dare you? So we've seen that there's like this weird manipulation in society where as soon as we decide that something is like not politically correct, if you suggest that you believe anything other than that, or you speak out against it, or you have a difference of opinion, you get cast out. Okay, you're saying this with transgender stuff, with Mars, which deals with genitals, by the way, male genitals in a square to Neptune is what does define a man or not, or I guess a woman. Pisces, Neptune is feminine. Now Jupiter is there. I mean, it's like, what the fuck, man? I mean, like, I don't know. I think that Jupiter in Pisces, the positive side of this retrograde is that it's going back into wherever Pisces is in your chart, helping you really tune into the faith. And I think it's important to kind of like separate out or drop out from all the noise, the distortion, the manipulation, the confusion. And it's like important not to play into like the paranoia or the fear. Because Jupiter-Neptune is that. I mean, we saw COVID numbers go up during the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction in the spring. We also saw a lot of people have collective fears about this war that was ramping up in Ukraine. And mental health issues, addiction issues. I mean, you know, Jupiter and Neptune together can be very spiritual, but it can also just be like losing your fucking mind.
Oh, yeah. And maybe, hopefully, enjoying it or not. But, you know, it's definitely controversial, and I'm so glad you brought up the last 2 years, because everything about Jupiter and Pisces is a culmination of 2020 and Saturn in Pisces too. So, you know, did you hear about what is happening to people in New York who I think a judge ruled that
that anybody who is a considered to be like a city or state employee, like they're now basically being, it went through the Supreme Court of New York that if you lost your job as a result of not willing to give into the mandates, not only is your job to be reinstated, but also you're going to get back pay for all the time that you have not been paid. Now, even though that sounds like a win, and certainly other states may follow in suit,
you still lost a lot of time.
Yeah, but what about all the private employees? So if you worked for a private business, a private owned company, if you weren't a civil employee or a state employee, you know, whatever. So I don't know. I don't know if that affects the cops and all the teachers unions, and also I don't think so, and all of the nurses unions. Probably not, but it's still a step in the right direction, showing that you can't not deny jobs and also pay and benefits for people who were unwilling to go along with the narrative of what was being pushed on them. So that's a win. Other states might follow in suit. But there's tons of private unions and institutions and stuff that they're still fucked and they're out of a job. And it's like, okay, cool, you're going to give people their job back and you're going to pay them, which is probably going to make the state of New York go bankrupt when you have to pay for like almost 2 years of back pay. But what about the people who killed themselves because they couldn't figure out how to feed their family?
Because they were ostracized.
What about the people who were completely secluded from their families and they couldn't be around their families And because their opinion in terms of their decisions with their health were separate from their families, they dropped them. They spent holidays alone. They had mental health issues. They had health problems. They didn't have insurance. Like, what the fuck? Like, you're going to do that 2 years later?
That's crazy.
And, like, I hate to be that asshole who's like, I told you so. But, like, I kind of told you so. And if enough people are reading into the news and not just watching Fox News or CNN or, like, MSNBC, but you're actually, like, learning about this, this is not really making major news headlines. Like, people aren't talking about this because the media is still getting paid through Big Pharma. We're still seeing major merger between Big Pharma and also politicians. And recently, we have seen that there has been a push to actually add this to all children's vaccines moving forward because they're going to get immunity as long as it's a part of the kids' vaccination schedule.
That's crazy.
So you're going to pawn this off on kids. Oh, and P.S., you're hearing all kinds of stuff about stuff going on in the UK and also Australia. Death rates are up 17%. Yeah.
And there's only
in Australia
very few common similarities
so
to align it to. But see, this is really important because a lot of these dynamics are still in the fog of what if. Like everything that you said, even though I might be biased. Someone can say I'm biased and I believe you. Everything that you said could still be chalked up to theory, right? Could still be chalked up to your opinion.
But there's factual headlines now.
Right. But we can still say that.
But it's being limited in terms of visibility.
And how many people see it.
Online. And also, how the fuck are you going to reinstate people's jobs? Is Twitter going to come back and give all those banned accounts back?
Exactly.
Are you gonna unfact check things?
And that lets you know how serious
people?
They are about it. If they really cared, they would have done that. You know what I mean? And what I think is amazing is with this Jupiter coming out of Aries, we're going to see the demystification of everything since 2008, 2012 that was a mystery. We're going to, like, now that we know it's facts, it's not going to be confusing. Like, we're going to be clearer than ever what's real or not. And that's what so I feel like there's two stages of this. The Scorpio season stage is where we come into this breakthrough, and then the Sagittarius square is where we start to change how we see because we're coming out of the fog.
Well, we're going to see planets that are going to be in Sagittarius. Sun, Venus, Mercury, and Sag oppose Mars, square Neptune, where some people are going to go, wow, obviously I didn't see that side of the story.
In light of evidence, yes, thank you. Or maybe they didn't see it
Jupiter
because it was
Sag
censored.
is so inflated, though. I mean, it's going to be...
on both sides, if anything. It was square.
I think a lot of people are going to realize it's going to be some, like, really colorful Thanksgiving and Christmas dinners as this stuff is coming out, and people are, like, 2 years later being like, oh, I guess your, like, crazy funkin' conspiracy theorist uncle was right. Like, nobody's going to say that, you know? And I don't think it's a good idea to be like, oh, I was right, I knew it all along, because nobody knew shit. Doesn't matter how right some of the conspiracy theorists were, or some of the people who were very pro the V word. Yeah. But I think there's going to be this realization that there was like a much more darker, manipulative thing going on. And I thought all along, like, point blank, Mars square Neptune is literally like spiritual warfare.
It totally is, yeah.
That's what it is. And it's psychic attacks, stuff going on in the spiritual realm, things that are going on within screens, like... People are fucking possessed the way that they are just consuming everything that's kind of coming through the news. Part of the Mars square Neptune retrograde, I think it's going to be like, get off your phones, get off your tablets, get off your computer, go out into your local communities and fucking talk to people. Stop being afraid of a virus. Stop being afraid of somebody's different, religious or political belief. Like, you got to get out there and interact with people. The North Node in Taurus is all about physical connection. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so all of this conflict has been created and distraction. So we're so busy arguing on keyboards that nobody's really wanting to talk in their communities, and people are having a further divide.
That's it. That's Saturn square Uranus, theory versus reality. So
the retrograde starts on the 28th. It's going to go back to 28 degrees. I'm curious to see, like, when Venus and Mercury and the Sun start trining Neptune. Yeah. To me, that seems like sad.
Sad.
It seems sad, yeah. Scorpio's about like death and letting go, and then Pisces is like acknowledgement, letting it all like come out in the wash and like completing cycles. So I actually have a feeling, because this is the first time we've had the South Node in Scorpio. We didn't have it last fall. So it's going to be like, well, that ended, but this is, at least it's complete, or at least it's at peace. I think there's a lot to be learning about that. The part of the spiritual process is consciously taking time alone and also like letting certain things come to an end, and that things can't always just keep going, in a positive direction. That we can't have new life, North Node and Taurus, without endings and release and letting go.
Yeah.
Obviously, lots of financial challenges, but that's more in the Saturn-Uranus square. And then, planets start going into Sag. And we see Jupiter goes direct right around November 23rd, right around that new moon in Sagittarius. So that'll be interesting to see the new moon, and then planets are going to start to square Jupiter and Neptune.
Yeah. That's breaking through the conflict and intensity of Scorpio. I think the Sag season might be one of...
God, the Sag season's a shit show.
It really is.
Especially if you're a Virgo rising.
Oh, yeah.
May the Lord be with you.
Oh my God, y'all about to be going wild. There's just so much revelation coming to the light that with these squares will really... I think a lot of people will feel betrayed because of the trust they had in the theory versus the reality. Like that was the whole thing with the past 2 years. You had a lot of people arguing theory. Because in theory, there should be nothing wrong with taking a V, for example. But unfortunately, the reality wasn't what the theory should have upheld. And this is where I feel like in light of that post-Virgo season, now that Virgo season brought us the facts, Sagittarius season, we're going to start to see what all these facts mean. What for the long term. We're about to start to see the long-term effects. So,
you know what's interesting to me? When I think about 2020 and that Jupiter and Saturn were in the same degree, or the same sign, they were in Capricorn.
Yeah.
And then 2021, Jupiter and Saturn were in Aquarius.
Yeah, that's true.
And now we're going into
so
2023,
true.
And we're going to see Jupiter leaving Pisces and Saturn going into Pisces. So what have you guys learned since 2019, 2020?
Yeah.
Jupiter talks about forecasting the future, what could be, making things bigger, and especially global. So we saw global takeover, global shutdowns, global control grabs in 2020, 2021, global shutdowns, global limitations, global isolation, social limitation, and censorship. Now we've got Jupiter leaving Pisces and Saturn going into Pisces. This becomes a new normal.
Yeah.
Feeling isolated. It's like, I think they're taking certain people in society and certain people in the media and being like, look at what we can do. Mm-hmm. We can cast you aside. We can cancel you. You're not going to exist. Nobody will see you. Nobody will support you. Nobody wants to hear you. Yeah. And they're using them as like they're making an example out of them.
It's facts. Yeah.
To show you how easy it is to just be like, you're not being supported. You're not being seen. You cease to exist. Mm-hmm. But here's what's cool. Even though Saturn's going to go into Pisces, we're going to see over the next 2 years, Saturn's going to sextile Uranus. Saturn's going to sextile Jupiter and Uranus too. So there's the idea of existing in the internet and existing in theory and on the airwaves. And then there's existing in reality.
Yeah.
And what's going to be more stable? Do you want to be an idea? Do you want to be somebody who's worshipped by the masses? Or do you want to be an individual?
That's
do you want to be
beautiful.
different? Do you want to focus on your physical reality? It's like, do you want to have a garden or do you want to live in the metaverse?
Right.
Which one's going to feed your soul?
And that's where the square forces you to choose one. And like you can balance both, but you're going to be drawn towards more one side. And we're going to see, I feel like Saturn coming out of Aquarius will push that narrative because it would eventually square Uranus and Pisces. So,
well, and Jupiter's going into the sign of Venus's exaltation.
Yeah.
So that's interesting because we're going to see lots of good film, lots of great music, like lots of expansion in, spirituality and religion and meditative stuff. But then when Saturn goes into the sign of Venus's exaltation, I wonder what's going to happen.
Well, see, that's where a lot of what's been in the air is going to be demystified and made real. Like a lot of stuff that was like, okay, this is true, but we don't have evidence, or even if we have facts, it's not really, it's accepted now. Like it's completely, and this is going to be the destruction of the veil and the illusion since 2012 because it's over now. And this is bringing a wrap up to the whole plan that has led us to this point, which is why I love that you said it's like that's the new normal. I also think it is the vehicle for revolution because we've reached the crescendo point where now this has happened to too much people. Now it's time for these people whereas before we didn't reach that critical point.
Yeah.
Now we're there. I think the Aries will bubble up a lot of conflict.
Also, like, you know, Pisces is the feminine version of Jupiter. Jupiter is associated with Sag, which is more fire, masculine. Jupiter in Pisces is more emotional and sensitive and psychic. So I'm wondering, I mean, man, every time Jupiter goes back and forth over that 0 degrees of Aries, it's so fucking loud. It's been so loud this week with like all the Jupiter and Aries stuff. It's still going to hit it again in December, but I think that this is less about expansion in terms of travel and expansion in terms of places and culture and religion. It's more about expansion of the spiritual realm, what we feel, our connection, what we see in our dreams, what we're feeling, and we're very much affected by the collective. So Jupiter goes direct. We're going to see a ton of squares in the end of November, beginning of December.
Yeah.
Jupiter is going to hang out the last degree. 29 degrees of Pisces is the last degree of the zodiac. So it's like where we see like lots of endings happen suddenly and kind of clearing things out and clearing karma.
Yeah.
And then Jupiter is going to come back into Aries, and it looks
When
like that's
the sun is
happening
0 degrees cap too.
right around the winter solstice.
Yeah. That's
Sun square Jupiter. We've seen lots of Jupiter squares, actually. We saw squares happening with the fall equinox.
okay. That's
Yeah.
true.
So larger than life things happening. Wow. How amazing will that be to see
It's a big start.
the equinox, the winter solstice
Right before the new moon.
is going to happen when the sun and Venus and Mercury and Pluto are all in the same sign, and the sun's going to square Jupiter.
And a lot of new moons since Virgo have been directly aspecting Jupiter. So it's all part of a theme here that I think the Capricorn square will push forward and through.
Yeah.
So everything will probably be building up until then.
And it's going to be almost 200 years before we see the Jupiter-Neptune conjunction again in the sign of Pisces. So we won't be alive. Be mindful of your thoughts.
Yeah.
You know, be praying and meditating or chanting or...
Because you're a part of something now that you don't know is going to be the next wave, right? If you think about people who were just on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, none of us knew that it would be what it was today. None of us knew it would be like the next big
I feel like
thing.
social media is like viruses. They have like a period of time where they're like running rampant and then it just dies off. And like for the last 3 months, I've been like rumble, or like bitch shoot. And like now that I'm seeing other people being like, yeah, it's time to get on uncensored, uncentralized, like it is time. Like, you know, I think it is important to be able to connect with the masses in a way that doesn't feel filtered and it doesn't feel limited.
Yeah. Amen to that. Well, before worldwide censorship takes over, you should just join level 3 right now, just in case. So you won't miss our live readings every week or whenever we show up. And I hope you make it through this Jupiter retrograde transit. It's going to be very mysterious, loopy, but I think it'll push forward a lot of it'll push us out of the fake narratives that we've been dealing with. And then I feel like Jupiter in Cap, Aqua, and Pisces was just a lot of fake narratives being expanded. And now Aries, Taurus, and Gemini is flipping it to
so much Saturn energy
the
too.
individual. Yeah.
So much Saturn
Pisces.
energy. So we couldn't really have the expansion of
Yeah.
Jupiter. But when Jupiter goes back in Aries at the end of the year, it's going to be like game on. I'm actually really excited to see this solstice chart because I feel like even though it's a balsamic moon, it's going to be very action oriented. There's a lot of shift happening right at the end of December. It's going to be a very active.
Scorpio and Sag is legitimately shifting our perspective for game on in Cap. I totally agree. Final boss battle, Sun Pluto's conjunction.
Oh man, the Pluto's getting ready to leave Capricorn.
Yeah.
And then that Mercury
Saturn.
retrograde conjunct Pluto also.
Ay. So this is going to be, I wouldn't be surprised if we're in war or some crazy shit like that. So, I mean, we've been saying that, but it just gets so much more intense as time goes on. So, yeah.
Let us know, where is this happening for you guys? Are you a Pisces, sun, moon, or rising? Do you have planets in 27, 28, 29 degrees of Pisces, or even the 0 degrees of the cardinal signs? They're totally getting hit as well.
That's true.
How are you guys feeling with this energy? Let us know. Leave us your comments below. Let us know where you're tuning in from. Don't forget to join our memberships, subscribe, give us a thumbs up. Sharing is caring, and join us for our live readings if you want to support the channel. we're getting up there. Right around the new year, we're going to hit 100 episodes, which is kind of fucking crazy, to be honest with you. Yeah. So this just started as a passion project, but we're still doing it because you guys like it. Somehow you care what we have to say on the internet. You're sending us lots of love, lots of donations, bottles of very nice alcohol. So thank you guys for fueling this and keeping this going. We love you guys so much. We'll see all of you very soon. Enjoy the rest of your week. Take care.